Well, welcome to Really Love Guitars, and look at this thing. We have Ian's Hofner on the bench, and this is an amazing old guitar, and it is a Hofner. It's a real McCoy. It's one of the sort of 1960s bottom of the line, bottom of the range guitars, and it's absolutely filthy, and the strings on it kind of look like, well, they look like they're 1960 strings. Now, all told, this guitar is an interesting little thing because it plays badly. Of course, the action is horribly high down here. So I'm going to start by taking the strings straight off, ceremonially take them off. Oh, blimey. And I want to have an investigate really and see what the neck is like, because interestingly this guitar has what appears to be a truss rod cover, which suggests, oh look, a bit of the original colour of the strings. Yeah, so it claims to have a truss rod cover, so you never know, you may have some adjustment room left in it. Although I'm not holding out a lot of hope for this, because it's, well, not a lot of hope for just being able to adjust the truss rod. Mainly because it's got, if it has any adjustment room left, you'd kind of think it would be mostly done at this stage. But we have, let me just have a think here. While I'm at it, let me just take a measurement, because there's a reduction on height I'm going to have to do here that adds up. We've got an action here of, I would say, 6mm at the last fret. I'm just going to write this down because I'm going to need to take down 4mm of that, I should expect. So we've got a 6, can't draw. 6mm. Yeah, and we don't want that much, but the question is how are we going to achieve it? Well, the simplest way will be to take down some of the material from this bridge, which doesn't, of course, need it all, but that also depends on whatever else we find. I suppose another way might be to quote-unquote reset the neck, but to be quite honest, I don't see any way of, I wouldn't want to try or think about doing that. It's fixed where it's fixed, and actually it's not really going to move in any direction. I mean, I think what may be true is that this may have just plateaued off a little bit, possibly because it appears to have sustained a crack, possibly on either side here. But that will only have been from a knock or a drop. It's not really as a result of anything to do with stresses on the guitar, I don't think. There's nothing about the pressure that would cause that particular piece to break. I mean, it might do something else to the joint, but let's just try and unload these strings. God, they're awful old tuners. The originals, most of them are anyway, but they never were very good. They didn't have ferrules. They seemed to just sit in a hole, and the hole was just about big enough, and that was your lot. One of these has been replaced over the years, since it's clearly from something else. Let me just put this down here. So I'm just going to cut these. So I got a quick measure of the order of the challenge we're going to face in terms of the action, and so I'm going to take off. How well you can see this. Sorry if that's not too good. I'm going to just chop most of those off if I can help it. It really is 1960s grime. I wouldn't like to imagine the last time Ian or anybody put strings on this thing. It could easily have been as long ago as 1960s, judging by the built-up fill. Okay, so let me just pull out the bottom bits. Off comes the bridge, which I'm going to mark for its position. Although, to be fair, if we restore anything about this guitar, we'll end up positioning based on intonation rather than marking. But it's good to know where the start point would be. So let's just chuck these hideous old strings away. Grime. And then I'll just get a little bit of tape and mark the footprints. I think they'd be quite easy to see anyway, but I'll just drop a piece of tape on there. Oof. Grime and grubbiness. So, okay, so the first thing I wanted to look at, which was of interest to me, was having a look under the truss rod cover with these well rusty old screws. See what we've got. Who knows? If there's a cover, there must be a truss rod, we thinks. And so there be. Old-fashioned style, which would need a small sockety thing to do. So let me just put those there. Now the other thing we've got to do with it, we'd have to do anyway with this, is to get that nut off. And we have to copy it. It's already broken, so we have to get it off and try and replace it or replicate it. There we go, not too bad. So that's good for a copy. And we've got the first 0 fret here, which is pretty manky. None of this actually is as far worn down as I would expect. To be fair, these frets have got more life in them than I expected. But the first thing I'm going to do is just have a look and see what the state of play of general flatitude is. Now this is obviously unloaded at the moment, but there's still a curve in it without any load on it. So that's obviously going to be, even if we had the right sort of action, we've still got trouble. We're still going to have a difficulty. Because it's got a built-in curve. So what I want, what do I want? Probably a socket of some sort. I'll put them somewhere. Could be over here. Let's have a look. Let's move this out of the way. Yeah, so I want to just see if this moves in any way, but before I do that, I'm also going to take off this dangling scratch plate fixture, because at the moment it's just not attached to anything, and it'll be in danger of scraping backwards and forwards and doing some damage whilst being completely pointless. So that's that off. Right, like I said, let's try. I've just realised how hungry I am again. I haven't eaten all day, foolishly. So I've got these sockets here. It might just work if I can get them fitted in there. They're not the easiest size, but I think, oh yeah, that one's just about working. Okay, so let's try turning the truss rod and doing it up a bit. Let's try getting the damn thing out afterwards, which is not the easiest of things. Not at all. So I put a little bit of a tightener on that, because ideally I'm looking to see if I can take out the curve without doing anything else, because if that were possible, if the truss rod actually worked enough, you never know, we might just get away with I don't think so. We might get away with trying just to reduce the bridge down and seeing if we can make that work. But currently this has not made any effect, so I'm going to crank some fairly chunky, hard turns into it, and we'll leave it to possibly take effect or not. Let's see if it does anything at all. Still an air gap under there, but you never know. You never know. So what we've got then is we've got this bridge that theoretically, oh my lord, should come apart, and it's not going to want to do it. It's been so long. I'll put a bit of WD-40 on it and see if I can persuade it to do anything, but chances are the answer will be no. I'm going to have to go and get something to eat because I've come over all shaky and starved. So my sort of idea straight off was, because this bridge is in two parts, we've got the saddle bit with the fine bit of saddle on top, and we've got a sort of base part, and then we've got some thumb wheels which theoretically should allow us to turn to raise that or lower it. Now currently it's right the way down, so obviously whoever, Ian or somebody, has turned this all the way down to try to get the strings down lower. But what I can do is I can take this off, and we can take off some of this material. I don't want to take it off this part because it's got a curvature in it which would be more difficult to recreate, but I certainly think we can take it off the straight line part without any problem. Now the question is I need to turn this theoretically counterclockwise to get it to come out. It doesn't really want to do it. Blimey. A little bit at a time, maybe. Yeah, it's just about rising. A tiny fraction. It's not easy. And to do it without hitting and squishing anything else. Little bits. May not be, this little wheel may not be very serviceable at the end of this, frankly, because they weren't really doing anything in the first place. But okay, it's moving, but it's still incredibly stiff. Oh. Well, I'm going to have to get these off, because in order to sand this down, shave this or reduce this down, I mean the alternative is to buy another one. They're only about £5 on eBay, so you can get a really cheap replacement for this sort of thing. Which probably ultimately makes more sense than struggling with something in this sort of corroded condition. Although, as I say, if you just do it very, very slowly, very slowly, it will do. Well, we've got a bit of movement, but as I say, whether or not we'd ever actually be able to do this with our fingers is a moot point. Methinks not. No. It's grip or nothing, I think. Question is, which way are we going to go? Let's go the right way. I think I might have done this one up a bit again. We want it to go. Do we want it to go that way? Let's have a look. Get it going the right way would be the helpful bit. Come on. Backwards. So this is, yeah, this could take forever. It's got some movement, but it is tricky. Okay, I'll do this slightly off camera later. Not even sure that with any more WD-40 it's actually going to improve it, because it's kind of WD-40 against wood tends to just get soaked up and doesn't really do much. Okay, so that's possible. We'll get that apart. May lose the wheels in the process. Just checking this. That's me. Yeah, it's made a little difference, but I don't feel it's going to be enough for what we need. I mean, if it's this difficult to get to take up the slack with no strings loading on it, and I'm pretty much going to run out of adjustment room. And I can't also get the damn thing out again. Now the point being, if I can't get a reasonable amount of correction with the truss rod, then what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to expect the simplest thing to do will be to refret it and refurbish this fingerboard, which it feels like a nice thing to do given the state of the neck anyway. But I suppose the simplest way would be if we could get a flattened neck and then just load it with strings. It's better than it was, but I wouldn't say it's all the way there. It's sort of nearly there. But again, as soon as you load it, then it's going to pull back the other way again, and that's a full adjust on the truss rod as far as I can see. But anyway, I'll leave it for a while, and meanwhile I'll take this thing indoors and look at pulling this apart and come back a bit later on when I've done it and see where we go. Okay, see you in a bit. Quick burst of camera action. Are we working? Here we are. So I have taken off about 4 millimeters off this bridge already, having taken it apart. Ta-da, there's the bottom bit. I've also reduced these little pegs down. We don't need much of them, we just need enough to sit the piece on top, but no more, thank you. So I'm just basically flattening down this one here, make sure it's flat all the way across, and then we can put it on and just get a sense of how far off we will be in terms of playing height action cameras. Alright, so it's a very different height altogether. The hole doesn't quite feel like it matches up because it's moved over the sort of, I don't suppose it was vertical, but with a bit of a push it goes on. So there's our thing, sort of basically balance it up in the middle, and that's quite a bit lower, but it's all the same component parts, which is nice. Just move some of these old bits away that I won't be using. So that was a mixture of working with the wood file and sandpaper. Takes us down. Now, what I've also noticed in the meantime, I think, is that the curvature is still just about there. We haven't quite got rid of it, so you never know. Might just be, with the strings on, might just be enough. We might be in the, if it doesn't bend too much, we might be in the playable region. I sort of prefer to do that than refret all in one go if this truss rod actually does something. Mainly because a refret on this is an expensive option. And of course we can always do that. It's not exclusive. If we don't do it now, it doesn't mean we're doomed. We can do it again later. So if I was checking out my playing action here, let's go toppy. That's workable. I mean, as long as it doesn't bend a massive amount more, I think we could aim for getting this whole thing playing. And like I said before, the frets are almost new enough. I mean, they've got enough life in them to do a precision fret leveling and get that, get them resurfaced so they'll play. So I think we can get this thing playing. I think I'd like to do that in the short term. I need to repair the nut. So here's things we need to do. Technically, we don't need to replace the tuners to make it play. So we won't to begin with. I'll replace the nut, cut a new nut, custom nut to make this work. I think judging by the chips on here, I'm going to take off that one and I'll put a new one on once we've leveled. Yeah, once we leveled the others. I'll do this last on there. That's tricky, isn't it? How do we do it? How do we do it? How do you do what you do? If we put this on first and then level it, what we get, let me just think this through, we get a really low first fret action by default out of this, so it's a kind of capo action, which is about 0.1 of a millimeter, which would be a bit weird on this guitar. So the alternative is we clean up the fingerboard, we restring it with some sacrificial acoustic strings, which I've got some up there, which in fact I could put some on now and check the action and stuff, couldn't I? Yeah. I'll get this right. Restring it with this on. I know. Restring it, fret level it with this one on, but don't go up to there, just level these. Yeah, that doesn't need leveling. Then take the strings off, replace that. Shall we see what happens? So I have some strings here which might go. So I need a nut, that's the first thing. And I don't think I've got a bone. Oh, I never can't use that, can I? I have to make a custom one, really. None of this stuff will work. Unless I were to, what was I going to do? Did I keep the original? Yeah. Could I make the, yeah, I can make the original work for now. For the purpose of, really what I'm checking now is the action. Oops. We know that this, we don't have an issue here because that sits directly on. Okay, I'm just thinking aloud here. I suppose I'm doing this in little stages because I want to see if it's playable first of all before we go too far down any one particular road. So I'm just going to take off the crud that's glued to this for a second. See if we can just sand it back to a flat surface, which I think we can. There we have it on the bottom. Yeah, not quite. Okay, and then this face as well. I'll be using this one as a sort of template anyway for the next one that I'll make custom cut. Is that smooth enough? Yeah. Okay. That will do for the time being, just for this test. So, all things being reasonably equal, we can have a bit of acoustic fun here now. And actually, the other good thing about this, what we'll see now, is what this does to the neck when we load it with some strings. Now, have I got? Yeah, I've got enough. I've got everything. That's good. A little bit tangled up. Can't remember what this came off. This is, oh, I think this probably came off the acoustic that I did the setup on for my ebook. So I'm going to chop these very end bits off. Just hopefully get this through these fitting's a bit easier. No, so that's obviously hasn't come from. Okay. I ought to write on these things. This is off a baby tailor, hence they're so small. And that leaves me minus a set. So, looking around where else I could have stashed some away. No. Alright, so I need to rethink this. Maybe I've got an inexpensive set over here. Aha, I have, for this exact purpose. Brilliant. Chinese horror strings. Bought expressly to be sacrificial. Sounds a bit unkind, but I don't think really they were much good for anything else, but there we are. I knew I had some somewhere. So these are not ones I'm taking too seriously. I can just get them out of their strange entanglement. They are pretty grim, but they really will do exactly what I want right now. If I can get the right order of them. Hee. I think I remember they were pretty short too, as it happens. They are, blimey. Oh my god, how did anybody ever fit those on a guitar? Yikes. If that's how short that is, what's the likelihood of reaching the next tuner? He says, about to find out. Otherwise we'll have opened up a set of strings for nothing. I think also these strings are probably not built. Whoa, we just get there. They're not built with a archtop in mind, with the extra string length behind the bridge. So that's why it's a squeeze. But if we just get them to hook on, then we can at least tighten them up just enough to try them out on this thing. So that could be an interesting little experiment. Right, this is nice. I'd be really pleased to do this one without so much major work on it. And I'm sure it would be nice too for Ian to have it back sooner rather than later, and not too great an expense. Now I don't expect these things to last very long before they are likely to break or something, but we shall see. I mean, I've kinked one of them already, believe it or not. Oh my goodness, this is barely going to grab hold of this thing, so I have to sort of try and get an angle on this straight away. Bend, sucker! Wow. Oh yeah, we've got a bridge to fit in there as well, haven't we? Blimey, with the bridge included in the deal, who knows if this is going to get anywhere near staying on. But yeah, we shall see. Okay, so I'm getting a good first off indication. You know, and you can see that it's, well, you may be able to see, it tells me that straight away the action is more like 2.5, nearly 3. So while we're playing this game, I can take some more off this. What did we say, 2.5, 3? So another, I reckon another millimetre off here wouldn't be bad. So let's just do it fiercely with the file. You can see I'm sort of guessing with that. Right, meantime, I'll just attempt to attach these as well. Stay in there. Now, Managed to make that go very well. Just try and make sure these things grab on and stay on. Yeah. I think I've got these two back and front some miraculous way. Holy crap. Nasty. Now there are lots of different kinds of tuners we can find that will do this job, and pretty inexpensively too. If we want to buy some Chinese ones, and there's no reason why not, they'll do the job absolutely perfectly. Look newer and a bit more together than these old things. Just lock that under there. Okay. It's sort of difficult to get this to do what it needs to do. Keep an angle on there and stay there, otherwise I haven't got the wrong hand back to front. Gonna fly out of my face. I'll just resort to doing it with by hand a bit. Seems to have lots of spare string on it. Very generous. This thing resonated earlier on when I did something. I think I hit something, and it really resonated quite well. Which bodes well for how it will sound as a playing guitar. So I'm just trying to bend these right over so that they stand some chance of hooking on. Yeah, I was amazed when I did the other ones, particularly the natural coloured one. I was really amazed at just how resonant they are, given the sort of plywood type of materials that they used. Wow, look at this, loads of room. So they've made these strings work potentially for a Fender style headstock, which is a bit weird considering they are evidently acoustic, well, they appear to be acoustic strings, but that's what they've done. They've cut them in sort of progressively longer, starting from the low E going all the way through. So I can just get this to stay in place. Stay on, you piece of... Slightly non-standard this, so it's a little bit frustrating. But this is a good initial test, and these strings only cost about £1, so it's not a great loss just to test this out. And then if it works, by the time I've taken a bit more off the bridge, if it works comfortably and it doesn't put too much of a curve back on the neck, and we can then go ahead with without actually having to resurface or refret it. That would be great. So I'm just taking another millimetre off this bridge. And if we go too far, we can always bring this up using the little flywheels, thumb wheels anyway, so. Okay. So just about as low as I would want to go anyway. Just clean these little holes out. Okay, so what's in the way there? A little bit of something, corner of the bridge or something like that. No, something can come out anyway. A little plug of something. But we don't want it in here, that's it. Right. So, nicely shortened saddle goes on top there. Should just pretty much pop onto there. Now this may appear a little bit out of kilter because of the right position of the holes, but that's about right. It's got a little staggering thing, what do you call it? Compensation is the right word. Okay, so put this under here. Hard to stand it up, but let's just put it here for starters and wiggle it about a bit. That's not so bad. Ooh. Make things stay where they should for a moment. We've got a nice rundown. Now this one is so badly attached, for all I know it might just pop straight out. Radically different action, if you can see that. That is pretty much workable. Well, the only question is whether it's going to tolerate all of this force, or whether the neck's going to go just totally blank, or whether the neck's just going to, the string's just going to come unhinged because there's so little to go through, which is complete pain in the. I mean, if I have to, I guess I'll sacrifice another set of strings, but I'd sort of prefer not to at this stage if I could get away with it. Now if I can just pull this through far enough to lock it in. Hold, to be honest. It's going to pop out. Well, thanks China. That's because of this thing. It's just way too long. If that had extended all the way up to here, we wouldn't have had a problem. There's nothing else I can do with it other than sacrifice a set of Martin strings, which. Unless just, oh, you never know. We could get away with something from a tin of weirdness. That look about right. Do you know what? Let's chuck this thing on it. This is a Thomann string now, which is obviously another low cost special. It can come off. It's never going to fit anything else ever again, but this is a Thomann special, so cheap and cheerful Thomann acoustic guitar set. Tried out for a little experiment, but as you can see we get all the way through, and that's got a bit of extra heaviness to it, so it's a bit of an artificial, it's going to be a bit of artificial tension, more tension than probably necessary. Stay still. So one of the reasons why you might want to replace tuners is for this reason, because they can be, they're old and crappy like this. Well, I maintain that they hold their tuning well enough. What you see is that they're a nightmare to wind up, and that's what we're seeing. But just as a start point, let's see if we can get anywhere near a tune. Oh, well, maybe we're already there. That one's really not in place, but it'll do. Well, okay, so you can see straight away we have got a... What have we got going on up here? We've got a bit of a plateau which is choking off the strings around here, around the 12th fret. Yeah, okay, 12th fret there, thank you. So it's not happy, but this is where the fret leveling could come to the rescue. And if that doesn't work, or if it doesn't look like it's even vaguely going to work, then we can quickly guess. We can then change tack, sand it out, but that involves a refret, which I'm never too sad to do. That's the tinging of the groove in the 0 fret. Okay, quick check back in here. This is Ian's ancient Hofner Congress, and I'm doing a quick sort of a quick fix just to get a sense of what's happening, whether it's workable without complete fret removal, neck sanding, and so on and so on. The way I've done it is to take down loads about 5mm off this bridge, bringing it right down into actually a really close proximity to the neck, which gives a lovely feeling action. And believe it or not, suddenly with some new mixture of old cheap strings on, crap strings, this doesn't sound too bad. Impressed with that already. However, okay, so what I can tell you straight away is the following. Okay, currently, if I can do this with my hands, oh god, that's moving. Too much. Okay, if I lift up this action a little bit more, we'll get a tiny fraction more out of it. It's a bit difficult to do. Maybe I can, let's see if I can just, not ideal to do it like this way, but I'm very, what's the word, I don't want to slack this off or else I'll lose the remaining strings. So what I can do is I can open this, this thin ease up, because these were playing just about okay, so I'll just raise those up a little bit more. Push that under there. Turn it over here. And then with a bit of brute force, waggle it down towards these things here. Now I don't know anything about the actual positioning in respect of intonation at this point in time, so we could accept that it might be completely crap, but still light enough. Why is that then? Is that because it's sitting down again? Yeah, I didn't really lift it up that much. Ooh. Sounds extreme, but we don't really care about those strings, so we don't mind. Go up and stay up this time, please. So again, this is more quick, dirty check at this point in time, because I've got to establish whether or not this is going to be a waste of time, or whether it is going to play in any way decently, or whether it really needs a complete sanding off. Okay, that's raised those treble strings up a bit, and so you should hear the difference. Okay. Just raise them a little bit higher, and if I'm just going with what I know usually, it's still lower and lower action than I would imagine I was going to get on an acoustic. Sorry, on an electric guitar. So we've got 1.75 here, and 2 would be good, and we've got under 1 there. So walk this back. Walk this back and I crank up the bass side. No, crank it up. Crank the bass side up a fraction there and a tiny bit more on the treble side. That balances it. Bong, 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 bong. And then waddle it back under tension. Very accommodating guitar, thank you so much, sir. I maybe have gone way too far back, but let's just take it to there. I'll work out the intonation separately. Okay, we're high pitch. Now we're in a zone now where we could tackle that with fret leveling. If everything else stayed the same, that's not too awful. So we'll pause on this for a bit and we'll come back and take this in the house and show Claire and see what she thinks, and then we'll come back to it. Okay, see you in a bit. Morning. Quickly switches off bleeping phone. Bleep, 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 bleep. Hello there. See, we're recording. Yeah, we're recording. Sam, We Love Guitars. Here we are. I've been playing Ian's Hofner for the last day or so indoors, and I have to say I really like it. It's just great fun to play. Nice tone. And it's really nice with a small amount of adjustment to the bridge. I've kind of rescued it into playability. It's still really filthy and everything. And the next stage, I suppose, the silver option now is to try and rescue some of these notes. Now this is caused, there's two reasons for this, or two causes of this. The first one is there is a hump here, and it's a bit weird because I've discovered that this piece of wood here, this is unlike my other archtops, I think. But on this one you can see clearly that this piece of wood is an insert that's been glued into place. So there's a little joint cut out there and it's kind of glued in place and then secured with the fingerboard, which is not a good idea. So there's not a continuity past this point with the actual wood of the neck. Now I'm pretty sure, but I'm not certain, that the other ones I've got indoors are one piece and then it's cut back in. So this and this are the same piece of wood, but it's not the case here. So there's a resultant hump here. Now for the silver option I'm going to try and fret level this in its filthy condition. I'll go pretty much straight into that with a hope, if possible, of using the curved fret leveling tool to, I suppose let me do it with a little picture. I'm just going to rub this off and see if I can illustrate it in a way that makes sense to me. Because at the moment it's a lovely action. So as I said, the first thing messing this up right this second, drag the camera out of position. There we are. Hang there, friend. Okay, so we've got this neck that sort of goes like that. And yeah, what does it do? Okay, it's like, let's get this sort of right. Okay, it's like that. I'm exaggerating, I guess, but it'll do. Purpose of the thing. Okay, so there's our archtop shape. By the way, the reason this piece is here, so I take it off. There's a massive, great chunk of paint missing. Oh well. We just have to avoid it. Okay, so what I've noticed is on this guitar, the insert is like the following. Let me just get this right. Up and across and back. So the insert piece goes like this. So it's all of that. And then I suppose I'll try and get a bit of blue. And what we've got along the top here obviously is this badly drawn rosewood fingerboard, which sort of caps the whole lot off. So in here we've got a totally different piece of wood. Now you can see structurally that's just a really naff thing to do. You know, if you think about all of this piece here being something completely different, one piece, one piece, and then you've got a completely different piece basically glued in there like that, and as a result what it has left is a bit of a hump around about here, possibly because it comes up here and at this joint it doesn't quite have the same straightness. Now that's not a bad illustration of the construction, but it's not a good illustration of what we're going to do. So I think I've just had a Morris come in. Hello Morris. Oh shit, I've got a set of frets here that I've just, oh hellfire. What am I doing? For some reason I cut a set of frets and I'm not sure what I cut them for, and they're sitting there waiting to get knocked off. Okay, so I suppose let's try and do a better illustration of what we've got. So in reality we've got a straightish line and then we've got a bit of a hump down. Okay, that's an exaggerated thing, and of course on that we've got frets, badly drawn frets, which then sort of probably go down a little bit of a downhill. Again, hello Morris. Sniffing all the chemically things is not great, is it, for you, my little friend? Yeah, so there's our hump there, and this is really bad drawing because it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'll try and make it sense. So what I'm thinking is can I get the curved fret leveling tool into it? I suppose that's the best way of illustrating it. It's not as extreme as that, but I'm just wondering, can I use the curved fret leveling tool to even out and just cancel out this hump? I'll know pretty quickly if I can or I can't. If I can't, then what will happen, as you can see from here, is I'll probably end up with practically no fret material. But the nice thing about the method I use is that I can back off as soon as I've got it a bit more playable than it currently is. Now if I can, as the silver option, as I explained it to Ian, if I can at least not go that extreme, but if I can take some of that obstruction out of that section of the neck, then it can only improve it from where it currently is, and where it currently is nice and playable in the chords department. It just isn't much good beyond that. If that doesn't work, then I'll show you again. If that doesn't work, then what I'm left with, Mr. Morris is being very chummy. If that doesn't work, so here's my slight curve like that. My overall neck is a straight thingish. If that doesn't work, then what I'll do is I'll pull the frets out, and I'll then go to the extreme of sanding out the hump, or the unevenness, if you like, until we get back to a flat. And then on top of that, once I've done that, miraculously rubbing it out with thingy, and once I've sanded it back to a bit more of a flat, then I can have the luxury of putting in some nice new, yes Morris, nice new jumbo frets or whatever. Now that's the gold option, you know, because it's a full refret and fretboard sanding stroke re-profiling. You know, in a way, it's what I've done. Well, it's not in a way. It's definitely what I've done with the other two guitars like this that I've had. So I'm trying to at the moment just see what I can do and limit the cost to Ian, because you know the full works on this with a refret and you know sanding down will make it play better, but it's going to be, you know, a couple of £100 in total by the time I've got possibly new tuners, new nut, cleaning, you know, it's a lot of money for a guitar that isn't worth so much, or not so much, it's not worth a huge amount when it's done, although what it does do is it makes it playable for another 30 odd years, which is not a bad thing at all. So I'm just curious to see how much I can do to fix this. Now what I'm going to do, have I got a reference tune? No, only on the amp. What I want to do is I want to mark off these frets with marker pen, because I'm basically having got pretty much an action that I like with the leveling of or lowering of the bridge. This is very difficult, it's so stiff. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to slack these off and then mark up the frets with marker pen and just go at it as a normal fret level, but bearing in mind that let's drop this off for a second. Bearing in mind that the curvature is probably a bit more already than a typical electric guitar, so this truss rod has only so much effectiveness, and actually you know, as we've seen, it isn't too bad, but it doesn't really have any more adjustment room, so we're going to live with that amount of curvature. Now just a thought, I'm not going to level the 0 fret at the moment. I'm going to leave that out of the equation because I'm probably going to replace that, and the 0 fret it doesn't need to be exactly level with the others. In fact, I'm going to set it just a little bit higher, which means if I refret it, that means I'm going to use some other fret material, which will probably, as it happens, be a little taller, but that will give me a sort of a good clearance on my first fret action. If I used the same gauge and same size fret for the 0 fret, then I would probably include it in this fret level, but since I'm not, and I want a little bit of extra height to begin with, and that means it'll end up with the first fret action being a little bit over or more than the 0.1 that is sort of automatically dialed in if I used the same gauge and treated it as quote unquote just one more of the frets. So I'm just going to prop this up. Okay, everything roughly in place and put it under tension, so that at this point the nut, which again is a temporary one for now, I don't have to have replaced the nut yet, because it's only a horizontal spacer. It doesn't really play a part in the playing action, or it doesn't play any part in playing action on this guitar at the moment, or it won't, because of the fact that it's purely a spacer. Okay, so when it comes to it, this bridge position needs to be a little bit more to the side than it actually wants to go, so I may have to work out whether I find a way of sticking this down a little bit just to convince it to stay there. It might be just double-sided tape underneath there just to hold it in place, but by the time we put it under full tension, it might stay in the right place. But then I have to, before I do that, I have to get the intonation exactly right, or the scale length I should say. Oh no, I left the damn amp on. So the batteries are all gazonked. Right, excuse me, I'm going to just use my little tuner on board here as best I can. I just like charging batteries endlessly. Okay. 60s tuners. Now what I've done is I've moved this back a little bit, and as a result it's changed the action on here, so for the time being I'm going to move it forward to where it was. Get that action back. Okay, that'll do for now. It's just to put the guitar on close to playing tension. And now what I'll do is get my what's it out, my truss rod thing, leveling banana file, as I call it, my little rubber string spreader, and a bit of tape to mark where I'm going. But what I'm going to do is the usual thing now. Obviously I'm going to be concentrating quite a lot on down here, so I want to calibrate this thing to the curvature of the neck down at this point and see what we get. Now, because the hump lives sort of there, it won't appear to be a massive amount of bend to start out with. Because the bend doesn't really show up exactly on this thing, so it's going to be interesting to do. I'm just going to slack this off loose to begin with, and then come back on and tune it back up to the curvature of the neck. But we'll see pretty quickly what happens. But as I say, with the guitar strung, we're able to again very quickly determine whether or not we're freeing up any notes. Now, as I said, on a normal guitar without this structural hump, you've seen, if you've watched my stuff, you've seen this method works very well, very quickly, and you can immediately or very quickly hear and feel the notes being freed up as we kind of remove the high frets and iron out any problems. But with this one, I'm not expecting too much. It may well require that we call it quits and defret it and go the whole hog with it, and I will do that if necessary. I'll make it play, and I don't have to charge Ian full price because he's a mate, and you know, we'll just go from there. But okay, so I've calibrated for the first string, and I probably need my little bit of string mover, which is down here on the floor where it fell. So for all of these, they're going to be quite hard to move around. So I'm just going to wake this off the edge, spread the string out with my rubber grommet, and these are sacrificial strings, even though they're new replacements, if you like. Okay, so I'm just going to get this going in the E track, and because of that hump, I'm sort of expecting there to be a lot of cutting, well, wherever it is going to cut, but somewhere around here, I would think. This is so far mainly just using the gravity, so I can see there's a hump right there, sort of where I predicted it, about 13th or 14th fret. At the same time, I'm removing some wear down this end, some grooves, which isn't a bad thing to do. And I think these frets hopefully can just about tolerate this. So I suppose from a price point of view, this version is kind of half the overall price, just about, or just over half the price of the full refret. So it's worth trying from, you know, customer's point of view to save them half the money. I'm just going to drop this back in. Now, as I said, the nice thing about this method is that I can try out how it plays at this point, having lowered some of the high points here. Well, it's not bad. That one there's a problem, but you know, we've freed everything in that track up to that one, which is a considerable improvement from before. However, I didn't finish my sentence earlier on. The first obstacle on this neck is this hump. The second one is not something I can immediately do anything about, is that this radius, the curvature of the bridge saddle, is slightly flatter than the actual radius of the frets on the neck. I don't know if that's how it always was from new, but it leaves us with a problem that, if I can just show you on the board again, just to make it really make sense. If you imagine this is the bridge curve, right, and the fret curvature is like this by comparison, right? So what it means is, when I set the action at the edge to play, let's say this string here, set that to play really nicely, what you'll find is the strings here are low, relatively low. That's okay, and that's okay, which is where we've got at the moment. Because of the mismatch and slight mismatch in the radius, it forces these strings to be low over the actual frets, and the result is you get buzz and or choking, or whatever we're noticing, choking off at this point, high up, where we also have the uneven frets. If all the frets were perfectly even, it could handle this and it would play there as well as these. It would just be the action would feel slightly higher at the edges, but in reality, because there are uneven frets on here because of the hump in the neck, this lowness here throws out those buzzing choke notes, and that's the second complication on this neck. So it's, you know, it's interesting. We don't know if it's really going to work out, or it could be that by the time we get down to making any of these notes play, we may have just kind of run out of fret life, which is another possibility and not an ideal one. So we're going to put a bit of welly into this end now to try and iron out that last problematic fret or two at this end. And again, if we don't get past that and we've got a choke note right up there, you know, we're going to live with it possibly on this guitar. If you said to your customer, look, would you live with it and save £100, or would you, do you want to go the whole hog? Your customer might say, well, you know what, I can actually play this thing where I couldn't before. That's a bargain. I'll take that and we'll call it quits. So it depends. So let's see where we got to. So this fret here is choking from here and here, and this fret is so these two frets are currently a major problem. I'll give them a bit more of a heavy wallop at this end, and try and ease off the other frets a little bit and just concentrate more on those, and then move on to the next track. Now with these, it is a pretty low action already. I mean, I've been very adventurous with this, and it's quite an impressively low action. I mean, it was completely unplayable before, but now it's actually really playable, more than any old vintage Archtop has a right to be. So to be honest, even if we raised the action just slightly and overcame this last bit of unevenness, that's not a bad outcome either, right? So that's where I'm going to stop. So we'll just carry on from here with the other track, and we'll see how that works. It's going to get harder as we go into the middle because of that reason I illustrated on the board. And that problem with the mismatch of the radius might demand that I put the bridge up a little bit, in which case the outer strings will appear to go up in slightly in playing action, which is not ideal, not what I want, but hey, you know, it's a small concession compared to what it was before. So I'm going to use the same calibration on this track, and I'm just going to work on the B track for a bit. Of course, you can see all of the guitar in itself is just totally filthy, and we're not even getting onto the cleaning part, which I'll go into the house and get a toothbrush and work on the fingerboard and get rid of all this grime. Sleeves caught up in it. Yeah, so a big cleanup yet to come, and possibly, I suspect, a replacement of this 0 fret, because it's got notches in it, which, again, not too much of a problem on an acoustic guitar where you're not really bending strings too hard, but on an electric guitar, notches in the 0 fret really show up when you bend strings. They click. It doesn't actually prevent play, it just makes it feel a bit worse than it ought to. So, you know, if it's just a matter of putting in a single new fret, then excuse me, why not? Okay, so again, a lot of cutting going on here in the problem area. So this is effectively what you're seeing is, yes, I'm attacking the high frets here, but really what I'm doing is I'm ironing out some of that hump that I mentioned before. And again, same principle applies. I keep losing the plectrum because it's a transparent one. Here it is. I'm going to live with that. That's who's going to play an archtop right on the very last fret, unless we spend the extra couple of £100. So I'm going to go with this first, and I'm going to offer Ian the option, and basically, you know, I'll take it to him, and if he likes how it plays, then that's what he gets for the money. And if he wants it taken that last little, oh, I need to calibrate this, if he wants to go that whole hog further to the gold version, then we'll do that. Yeah, well, that's what you get when you work with crappy old strings. It's not the major problem, other than I've lost my reference point now, unless I can find another shitty old string I can use. I'd rather have a string on there to keep it under the correct tension. So let's go back to the magical pot of possibles. It may well be one of these Harley Benton jobbies comes straight into play. And there it is. Thank you, Harley Benton, for your service to mankind. When I was playing this bottom one earlier on, it sounded absolutely fine for the money. It just doesn't look quite right. It's not got the phosphor bronze look, but heck, it does the job for zero money, or next to no money. It's kind of it's hard to be working with something that looks so dirty. My temptation, or the urge to clean it up, is quite strong, but I'm having to be patient. This will obviously go out of tune quite quickly, because I'm not going to concentrate. Alright, there's one of the tuner screws dropped out. No wonder it's wobbling. Okay, I'm just going to try and get this under some pressure. Yeah, the screws come undone, so we need to probably fill those holes too at some point. Okay, so what we're going to do, oh yes, a quick tester. Alright, this is where we're going to run into some problems. Check this again. octave out. Right, okay, so let's try that again. Probably sound a little bit different this time. Okay, so we have problems from there onwards on this centre one. That is because of the relatively low action. And just for a reference point here, if I were to tell you what the action at the edge of this baby is 2.5, which is a decent action for an old archtop. At this top end, it's 1, so we got higher at the bottom. We need to rebalance this bridge probably, but right in the middle here we're at under 1mm on this thing, so it's not the same radius. So it's going to be, at this setting it's going to be almost impossible to get this to play. I can't reshape, literally. Oh, maybe can I reshape this? Almost certainly not. Let's have just a quick look while we're here. Let's just take this out. Okay, we have a kind of problematic little fella here. So first of all, I want to drop this action down a little bit here because that's too high. Balance it out with a treble end. But what we've got is a 2 flat thing. Now we could. Let's just kind of mid fret level here, which is a bit odd, but if I just take these strings off for a minute and hope they don't snap again in this process, and just this is where crap tuners show up, because they really do feel awful to use. We've got one dangling off there because the screw has come out. Somebody's already wrapped a little bit of tape around it to try and make it stick in its hole better. But okay, so I'm just going to take this off. What I'm quickly going to do is check again the radius of this. I'll show you why in a second. So check the radius. We're expecting about 9.5 or 7.5. It's quite a vintage looking thing. 7.25, 9.5. It's sort of between these things, which is quite typical. It's sort of worn over the years. I think it's more 7.25 than anything. I mean, the truth is, it doesn't really matter. It is what it is. But the reason I'm looking at this is if it's 7.25, I can find typical. I can't find my 7.25 radius sanding block, and the possibility is to sand this creature down to match it, I should say, and it is way off. I mean, I don't know how you can see this, but that's part of our action problem. Can you see the complete mismatch in radii? That's what the frets are, that's what the bridge is. So consequently, it's almost impossible for it to play. Now the question is, can I actually, will there be any of that saddle material left if I take this down? Well, who knows, we can but try. I can see as I'm doing it whether or not this is going to kind of run out of saddle material. I mean, the truth is we have to get it to where it has to be for it to do the job accurately. Now I can see that it's starting to get down to the wood. I don't really mind that, frankly, because what I need more than anything is I need a dependable radius that matches the neck. If I can't do it, obviously I'm just going to buy another one and match it that way. I don't mind if I have to slightly sand off this, the rest of this saddle, just to even it out. It's just wood. You can make it look any which way you want, but the important bit is to get this whole thing as close to the 7.25. And if we're missing slots, then we need to remake the slots in what we've got left. sorry about the noise. Okay, so we're losing the low E slot at the moment, which is to be expected, and I'll put that back in. But yeah, like I say, I want to get this whole thing slightly reshaped, and it's obviously not going to happen instantly. We've still got bone or whatever that material is to work with, so that's not too bad. I'm just going to round off the edges again. That's a real problem that you get when you have the mismatch. The bridges often don't match the radius, partly because the radius changes over time anyway. By the looks of it, you know, it'll sort of start off at 7.25, and over the years it might sort of shrink and change a little bit. But also, as you can see, well, it's probably correct to suspect that the bridges are kind of universal. So you buy a bridge and it'll work with supposed to fit with a variety of radii, which of course isn't a great idea when you really want to be sure of a consistent action all the way across. You're not going to get it with one of these. Okay, so I've now done quite a bit of sanding on this, which has taken off a lot of the material, and we haven't quite reached the top of those yet, but you can see that it's changed quite a bit about the shape of this. And if I keep going a little bit, we'll probably just about get there. We're not far off, and obviously there is a bit of overhang here that we've got to just keep tailing off, just where the radius doesn't quite cut, so we don't want that sticking up, getting in the way. But yeah, so this is the downside of a kind of one size fits all bridge. So, I mean, if it was a Hofner thing, then it may have been that this bridge was kind of just made as a standard thing to fit a range of models, but it clearly doesn't fit this radius on this guitar anymore. And you know, as you saw, the result is that the G and the D string then end up way too low, and in order to accommodate them, you have to make an uncomfortably high action on the outer strings, which isn't ideal. So I'm very near to having compacted all of the saddle here, and actually, given where we're at, I could probably leave that as it is. Now I have to mark up to get my little digital marker out. I'm going to mark up and just cut slots in here, very small slots, and I'll use my triangular jeweler's file to do that. But I think this will give us a better action all round, which is good. I don't really care about, I don't need to know the dimensions of this. I just want to duplicate the spacing. That's my main interest here at both ends, just to make sure we've got it. It's actually 10 millimeters, roughly 10 millimeters, just 9.5 apart, which is an interesting size. So I'm just going to mark this as a start guide point for the notch. That's the treble, and then reclaim the bass one, and I'll just check, I'll just make sure they're all good. Hardly have to be any depth at all, so it's just a starter point to hold the string in position. That's all it has to be, like that. That's probably just touching the wood there, and that's not a problem exactly, but I have to just be careful to make sure that this slopes away. Which way are we going? Brush on the base there, yeah. Just got to make sure that this falls away in front of the saddle, which of course it didn't do before, but I'm going to make sure it does. So, you know, modifications away from original to make this work in its new lower action. And it's still only a bit big. If it if it hits the wood on the outward track, then what it does is just changes the intonation point, moves it forward a little bit. It doesn't give it such a clean start. So I'm just going to sand that off so that it sits in the right place. It may, in many ways, it may be easier to buy a new bridge and work with that, but you know, let's go with, right, that's okay, that's just about done. Yeah, you know, I prefer to work with what we've got to start with. Okay, so that's just about right, and then I've got to cut a little groove in the top E at the same time using the triangular one. And again, we may have that same issue there, in which case I'm also going to cut in there and just modify the front edge of that as well. Same thing. It's a bit slow with this sort of file because it's not really made for filing wood, but although it's slow, it's sort of controllable. So it just changes the shape of the bridge a tiny fraction, but it's good because it rescues the intonation point from moving anywhere. We don't want it coming forward, we want it still in line with the top of the saddle the way it was originally. Yeah, okay. Alright, so we now have... Do you know what I'm going to do as well? I'm going to fill these little slots. They're too deep and we haven't got enough material to play with, so I'm going to do a small amendment using our bone powder and some super glue, and it's an amendment that's perfectly possible to do. It's not a bad little sneaky repair, and it works very well if you overcut a nut. If you overcut a nut, it's a good get out of jail option there, but I'm going to use it in this case to just to bulk up these, because the slots are cut deeper than they need to be, and as a result they also are messing up the shape of the radius on this bridge, and we haven't got a lot to play with, so the fun part is if I get some of this bone in here, and it's okay in the edge ones, but I'm going to go for these two middle ones, and I'm just going to, in fact these three, I'm just going to fill them, pad them out slightly with bone, just tamp them down. Really all I want is the smallest bit of glue, CA glue I guess it's called, on top, and that will just fill out the those slots. Now I know where they are, so I can just redo them, but I'm also going to chuck some more bone on top just to soak up any remaining super glue, and then what I can do is once that's set I can then go back over with the radius block and flatten it or smooth it out so it's where it should be, and then I'll just mark and notch again, which hopefully then will have given us a much better radius all over. This is a terrible pot, it just doesn't work. The lid on here just doesn't work. But it's expensive stuff, that glue, so I'm trying to preserve it. Okay, so I'm blowing away the excess and I'm just going to gently level out on here, taking away any excess. It won't happen instantly, we have to work it a little bit. When we do get there, it'll be quite nice and smooth with the radius. We can just sort of scrape off the little bit excess down the side as well with a blade. It's just sort of clean up motions. And then I'll just go back onto the smoothing the surface one more time. Oh, come off. Okay. A little bit, tiny bit more surface sanding. Of course, it didn't quite reach that very top one anyway before, so this will be kind of the first time it almost does. Okay, so that's our slight build up on the bridge saddle, and just cleaning up the top edge here. Okay, and I've still got the markers there, so I can just sorry, it's not a good view, I know, but got a little slot there on the E. I'll just make a tiny dent again on the B, and I can see the slot space on the G. Just enough to hold it. I don't want to dig way miles down in it. I just want to hold it in place. Obviously you've got to respect the size of the gauge of the string. Which end are we? Okay, so we're coming down to the fat end this end. I have to go a little bit deeper for the chunkier strings, but that's all. Okay, so I've remarked my spot, and what I also can do, or now if I can find a little bit of free sandpaper, 1,000 will do for now. I can just also smooth off the top if I just want to tidy up that look a fraction, and then smooth it off. So I have got which am I on? Base end here, and I just need to do a little bit more adjustment of the front edge. Did I have this right way around? That's the right way around, yeah. Okay, so a little bit more depth on this one because this is the bass string, and then just make sure that that just comes off the top of there without hitting into the wood. So just smooth that down as much as possible. And checking and checking. Right, okay, so that's an interesting modification. Put this back under here. Oh, there goes the nut. Temporarily. I still need this on for the time being. God, it's a really clumsy, crude mechanism. Stand this fellow up for a second. Okay, and then line up nearly all of the strings. Okay, put them up on the nut. So this is taking a fiddly long time, but now we'll return to the business of fret leveling with hopefully better action representing the radius of this guitar more accurately. Yeah, I reckon so. So we need a tuner. I'm going to run out of batteries any minute, so let's get this bit done. Get one more quick tune, make sure it's as close as we can be. Give it a pull. Okay, now we're back where we were, and we've got overall slightly more even action, which is really important. So where the heck was I? Oh yes, I'm going to recalibrate and move to the thingy string, the D string, and then we'll check it all out from there. Okay, so a little pause there as we rectified a basic problem that we couldn't do anything else with. So that's good, that's pretty much already set. Just pull this one out of the way. Spread the strings with the plastic widget, and back to leveling the D track. And again, we'll still expect the high frets up here because I know that that's got the hump in it. It's got the hump. And straight away it's cutting a lot at the top, which is no surprise at all. And we'll see what we get in a minute when I put the string back on and try it out. There's a lot of mess around here just on the hump point, but you never know, we might find that just about high enough action to make the thing play. Ah well, we don't need the plectrum. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back one step to that G track, and although it is a lower action than most anything else, because the radius still isn't perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was. I'm going to give this G another go, and then I'm going to move on to the A, because I think this is quite an astonishing action for what it is already. So I think we're very, very nearly there. And given that we could afford a bit of raising the action anyway using the thumb wheels to eradicate the final vestiges of the choking if we needed to. But I'm always competitive when it comes to these things. I want to make this thing work at the action that I originally chose, the ultra low action, because it's kind of more impressive in some ways to have an archtop that plays with such fantastically low action. But yeah, there's enough fret life in there, I think. I mean, it's not going to play forever on these frets, but it's going to be you know, a few more years of enjoyment. Yeah. You know, that would be cured by the tiniest of upward tweaks on the action, so I'm going to leave that to there, and I'm going to get on with this one. So it's pretty good. I'm impressed, if I may say so myself. But you know, that's the beauty of this method of fret leveling. You know, that we can constantly check and stop when we've got playability we want, as opposed to keep on merrily leveling away and taking away precious fret life. So I can tell you that we're going to be there on this guitar without refretting it, judging by this. But you know, you can see how much reshaping the radius on the bridge saddle helped, because without that we would have been still choking out on the G and the D strings. I mean, the D, sorry, they still slightly do right near the top, but I can tell that a combination of polishing the frets and taking this action a minuscule tiny millifraction up will cure that, and then we'll be in playable territory, which is great. So this is doing what I expected, which is taking most of the hump off, and it's actually, in a way, it's leaving out some of the frets in the middle because the hump is so pronounced. It's quite natural that it's sort of avoiding the middle frets mostly, not completely, it's touching them, but it's working on these ultra high ones at the kink point. Now I don't know about this extra piece of wood joint on this neck, or even if it's standard, or why they would have done it. It seems a really weird thing. Perfect. That's absolutely amazing for an archtop of this age. Whew. See, for me, that's one of the biggest thrills is to see, you know, how Ian's going to feel when he picks this thing up and plays it, because it's been unplayable up till now, and it's a great thrill to give it back and, you know, watch somebody start playing it and bring it back into their daily life instead of just looking like an ornament stuck in a corner. So the next part of this process then will be to reshape the frets, because at the moment, obviously, particularly at this top end, I'm really flattening some of them out to get them down to the right level. So we don't want to leave them like that because they won't play very well. The intonation will be a bit messed up, and also they won't sound good, and they'll feel scratchy if we left them this way. So the next stage is to re-crown them, it's called, which means to take them from a flat shaped fret to a smooth arch formed shape. And we do that with a crowning tool. In my soon to be released ebook, I show how to do that with a very cheap £10 maximum file, but I'm going to use well, I'm going to use a more expensive one to do this because it's quicker, but I'm not sure. Well, maybe it is suited for this. Okay, so look, quick summary. Let's get a tuning note, even though the notes aren't exactly clean playing because of the flatness on top. But let's just get a note, or let's just get this tuned-ish, and then we'll have a feel. Love it. That is the silver version is working. That is good enough to play all day long. It's not perfect, it's just very good, and I'm very pleased with that. So, fret leveling kit in its box to fight another day, and we're going to go into the fret reprofiling business. Now, at this stage, I can confidently bin these these temporary strings. Yeah, I can do that. I'm going to take them off and they're going in the bin. There's a bit of work to do still, so obviously the whole lot is filthy. So we've got a big clean up, a bit of a slow, careful clean up. We've got to rebuild a nut from a blank, which is going to take a while. We've got to copy this one exactly. Going to refret this. Refret this top 0 fret, and yeah, clean everything, and then polish, reprofile, polish out all of this, clean the fingerboard, blah 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 blah. There's lots of work to do yet, but you know, we're in a sort of reasonable place where we can do it without a complete refret on this guitar, which is good. Keeps it the original. Now these are going in the bin. They've had their day. Twang. And I'm going to cut the vid at this point because, to be honest, there's a lot of fiddly stuff to do now, and I've shown the re-crowning part and the polishing part a million times before, so it's the same. But with this one, obviously, there's going to be some cleaning of the filth off here, and I'm going to doing this very, very carefully because it's an old finish, and I've got to be very careful that it doesn't fall off when I try and do any cleaning. Sometimes the finish can be practically held on with grime. Now, what I also know is that I want to just back off these actions at tiny fractions. So just tweak that up a minuscule bit. I'm going to put that there with my strings out of the way and the truss rod covering the other little screws. The tuner screws need fixing. Everything needs fixing basically. It's currently a complete disaster. But the thing I will just quickly show you is, once I've got the strings off, I'm just quickly going to mark up the tops of these frets again and go at it very quickly with my fret recrowning tool. Now this is where a 90 quid tool should come in handy. In other words, it's quicker than doing it by hand, and that, you pay for the convenience of that. I'm not going to adjust the truss rod or anything else now, because having done the fret level at the action setup that we want, everything will now just wait until we put the strings back on, and it will fall back into the configuration we just had. So I'm going to use the medium edge of this and see how well, yeah, not brilliant, but there isn't a lot of flattening down at this end, I have to say. So it's doing its job. It's going to be more work at that end, and basically we just use it until the edges of the shoulders of the fret, the shoulders of the flat spot, are rounded off. And because this is concave, it sort of ends up with leaving a rounded shape on the fret, but we also make sure to leave a very thin strip of the marker pen on top, which is our way of knowing that we haven't actually touched the top of the fret, which means the level that we achieved, the relative level, is still intact. And that's what's important here. If we weren't paying attention to that, it would sort of undo everything we've done up till now. Well, some of it. Some weird birds out there today. So you can see this is pretty quick, and that's, as I say, that's what you pay the monies for. But you can do the same job with a tool like this. Now that costs £10, and that cost 90 nearly, or something close to 90. But you can see this is, for convenience sake, this is quicker. And if like me, you're often doing this 2 or 3 times a day sometimes, then a convenience tool like this is worth the money. But for doing your own guitars, a few of your own guitars, a £10 3-sided file will allow you to do a good job on this. Different technique, obviously. You have to kind of round over one side, round over the other, and come towards the middle. But I cover that. The ebook that I'm going to be releasing has that covered, because I use all low-cost tools in that. Not an expensive StewMat tool in sight. To prove the point that you can get a great setup without spending a fortune on tools, and by following some simple common sense steps and having some understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. The worst case is that you do something that you don't understand because somebody told you or you read it somewhere. It's so much better to do it with some proper understanding or some meaningful understanding, something that means something to you. I keep getting nice little YouTube comments where people say, didn't get this for a certain amount of time, but then it suddenly dawned on me how this or that works. And it's really great when that happens, because then it means somebody's able to do this work on their guitar, and in such a way that they totally get what's going on and it works for them. Okay, so I'm going to take this fret off. I don't need to take it off yet. I'm going to do this last because I don't have to do any leveling or anything. This fret just needs to go on fresh and clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off this neck. Ready? I will stop in a minute and cut the video, because watching me sand the whole thing is noisy and a kind of miserable, painful experience. Now I'm just being a little bit cautious. This tape is not quite as low. It's not quite as low tack as it claims. So what I'm going to probably try and do is just dust it up a bit before I put it on here, because I want it sticking to the fingerboard, but what I don't really want is I don't want it gripping too hard to the paintwork, so a bit of a sort of dust infusion sort of takes off some of the grippiness of it, but I do want it to do its job, which is to protect the fingerboard. So as you can probably guess that this wide tape is eventually going to get too wide for these frets, and then I'm going to switch to, I'm going to cut a series of thinner strips on a block, and then I'm going to use those, and we'll get on and cover it all up. Once I've covered it up, then I'm going to sand the frets shiny, or sand them first smooth and then shiny, with a range of grits from 600, 1000, 1500, and then I'm going to move over to a set of micro mesh papers up to 12,000, and finish off with some Autosol chrome cleaner, and then by the time we got there, the frets will be sparkling like new. Of course they won't be quite as tall as when they were new, but they aren't too bad all told. And once I've done the frets, then I will brush all the dust off, clean all the goo off, and I will then do some scrubbing on the fingerboard and get that all cleaned off and looking a bit newer. Obviously it doesn't look quite as new as if we'd taken the frets out and refretted it, or sorry, re-radiused the fingerboard and then refretted it. That gives it a really nice brand new look and feel, but that's not such a bad thing, because this is the silver at the moment and not the gold treatment. So the gold treatment gives you what feels like a new fingerboard, which is pretty nice. So I'm just going to put 4 of these strips over. Okay, I'll stop and I'll come back when I'm finished on the frets here, and I've cleaned up, and we'll be ready to recut the nut. Hello again, and we've got quite some distance. Look, beautifully levelled frets, shined, polished up, new nut glued in place, new what's that thing called? That big chunky thing, 0 fret. Okay, and the 0 fret actually still needs a little bit of work, but I can do that strings on, strings off. It's all it needs is just an amount of filing down, and I've got a new file coming for that, so I might actually leave that. Everything else is done. So we are really in a good spot. I've also taken the tuners off, and that's what I'm going to do now. So the tuners have come off, and I've got them all lined up here, and I've given them all a little bit of a grease. They're kind of ancient, well worn, but I thought actually it wouldn't hurt giving them a bit of grease. And what I'm also going to do at this point here is I'm going to try and shove a little tiny bit of no more nailsy type stuff, because these holes are a little bit worn. So I'm just going to hopefully not bulk it out exactly, but give it a little bit of extra something to hold on to when the time comes. So it's kind of a mixture of getting a little bit of blob of stuff and then wiping it clear and getting another little bit of a blob, and it's just a tiny bit of help to set over the time, because as I say, these are very old screws and they've been worked furiously. Okay, so these are all going to sit obviously up like this. There's no, what's the word? Those words, ferrules to hold these in place, so they just have to go into their original holes and hope for the best. And they are, being slotted screws, they are really a pain in the to manipulate. But there we go. These are all the original tuners, except one is again a sort of a replacement that was on the guitar. So I've done my best to just give them a bit of an oil or a grease so that they've got a bit more movement to them. They're never going to be smooth, high ratio tuners, full stop. That's not what they are, but they are, as much as possible, they're going to be smoother to use, and they've got a little bit of grease in there to ease the process. So as you can see, I'm just now going along and adding a little bit of no more nails help to each of these holes, possibly. You can't get much in, to be honest, but it doesn't hurt to give it a go. A little bit of extra. Some people would re-drill these holes or pack them out with something like cocktail sticks, but to be honest, cocktail sticks end up being such mushy, soft wood, relatively soft wood, they don't really do much in my book. So in this case I'm just going to go over all of them with a little bit of no more nails if I can get any in there, and just hope that whatever little bit I can insert in here just helps a tiny bit over time. It's very small holes to get into anyway. So you can see I'm making a bit of a mess there because just because. So after this, once I've got all these on, I'm pretty much ready to put some new strings on, and yeah, away we go. The bridges got the correct action dialed into it, I hope. I need a bloody microscopic syringe for this to work. These are such tiny holes, which is good. It means that these will grip anyway, probably without any need for this extra little help. But the reason I didn't consider changing these tuners is because the rest of this guitar is in its original condition too, and I just thought it's kind of, let's really concentrate on the playability of the neck and make that really special, and then we can leave the kind of cosmetics as they are. I mean, I've given it a little polish up all over, which does actually make a slight difference. It looks a bit fresher now, but it's you know, it's not trying to be anything it isn't, if you get what I mean. Okay, so on goes these, using the most pain in the bum, finicky of little slotted screws, which are beautifully rusty, so this looks like truly kind of 1950s or 60s hardware, which of course it is. And all the plastic is totally cracked to hell, but it should work, as I say, with a bit of extra grease on there. I mean, lots of possibilities for replacing tuners of this style that although they won't be original, still look pretty good. There's lots of very simple strips of 3 or individual ones that work really well, look good, but there's no reason why these shouldn't go back on, since they add to its lovely aged feel. Also, the fact that I didn't end up refretting this means that we've got the original sort of worn feel of the fingerboard, which actually isn't a bad feel. You can discern it with your fingers, but I'm a bit short of these screws here, some are missing. Yeah, you can just about feel it, but it's a sort of dimpled, slightly corroded feel on the actual fingerboard itself, but it's it doesn't interfere with play. Okay, I've got 5. I think I'm missing 1. Let's put this top one on. I have to go searching for another screw somewhere. I think it was on here. I don't think it was on at all, but I could be wrong. I'm sure I'll have 1 somewhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've also got 3 over, it might be over there with the truss rod cover screws. So the truss rod, I'm going to put the screws right back on that because there's no more adjustment possible anyway. Plus we don't want any more adjustment. You can see the old nut there, that's going in the bin. I copied that exactly, and it should work first time, but the important thing about this replacement nut is, even though it's a horizontal placement nut, the slots have to be wide enough so that they are good at positioning the strings where they need to be, but they're not so tight that they have any gripping effect, because we don't want them to mess up with the tuning. So we won't know until we've put it on, or put the strings on and given it a try out. If it needs any work, then I'm going to have to work on it with sawdust? Sandpaper, until we get it down to the right, or get the holes to the right size. Okay, I'm just having a quick look here amongst all my bits and pieces for a rogue screw. Ah, here it is. Good. This one already had a bit of something added to it to bulk it out, but that'll be fine. In you go. In fact, it's paper or something that's come right off there. Okay, so getting there. Okay, 3 little screws here. Oh, there's a 4th one. Hey, now how did that work? 6. I know the 4th one. It's from the scratch plate arm thing that I'm not going to use. So just give this a little wipe down. It's so much cleaner than it was. I'm going to put this on here now, and if I can just hold it in place. It's so slippery. It's so delightfully clean. This is where you really wish you had elf-like fingers, because I haven't got massive hands, but even my hands feel too big for this fiddly stuff. Okie dokie. Well, you can see the new nut sitting there. Fingers crossed that the slots are wide enough. I've kind of done a combination of dremeling and sawing and all kinds of things to get those big enough. The important thing about the nut, as you can see, is the height. The height of the sides. They have to hold the strings in place, and if they're not high enough, they run the risk of the string pulling off sideways. I'm just going to try and just file off the remainder of this. Zero fret before we put anything else on. Might as well get it as close to where we want it as possible. I'm just going to make sure that it's nice and smooth. Quite hard to, or fiddly to do when you've got the whole of the guitar to manoeuvre. Still needs a little bit of softening off, which is what this file is quite good at. Okay, we just don't want it catching too much on the hand. And then if I can do a similar version backwards on this one. Here. Okay, any more than that I can do at a later date. I've already oiled this neck twice now, and it's soaked up all of the oil I've put on it, which is quite something. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready basically. I've got tools everywhere, but I'll tidy those up in a minute. Let's just get on and do this bit. Get rid of that. Yeah, we're ready to restring it, and this time with some so-so, not too bad strings. Now, these are a while old, so, and they're medium gauge, so a bit heavier than I think the ones that came off. So we'll see how it takes to these strings. First question, yeah, it fits through, good, everything's good. So that new 0 fret, by the way, I don't know if you can see, but it's basically what sets the new action. Oh, of course my bridge has to go under there too. Sets the new action, and of course it positions the string. So I'm just going to pull back my usual, how much? Just about a fret's worth of my usual locking arrangement. So hold it tight over the loose string the first time round, and then this time round under the loose string. And I've got a sort of self-locking arrangement, and then I'm just going to drop it in there for the time being. Just to check out how everything's looking. It's looking good. So it should do. I mean, everything should fall into the same kind of configuration that we had earlier on. This is just a matter of restringing, and everything falls into place. That's the beauty of doing the setup this way round. Okay, 42. Now, this is a bit less precise. The nut action, first fret action, is a little bit less precise than normal. In other words, it's governed, sorry about the noise, it's governed by whatever height that new 0 fret creates, and that is a little bit, I wouldn't say hit and miss, but it's a little bit unknown. All I know is that it's going to be small, but I don't know exactly how much. So it's going to surprise me, or it's going to be news to me when we get these strings on and feel the first fret action. It may well be slightly higher than I would normally aim for, and actually there won't be anything we can do about that. It'll just be dictated by the difference in gauge plus the normal angle that the string comes away, yada yada yada, as if it was a cathode string. Anyway, so it won't be too high, but it won't be quite as low as an electric that I would do. But I think, all things considered, this little beauty is going to be superb. Love how the nut just went on and does its job with no messing around at all. Absolutely spot on. And these are obviously with a bit of grease on these, and taking them apart and just greasing them a little bit. They're quite a lot smoother and more cooperative, these tuners. I mean, they're not going to be any more precise in the tuning sort of side, but that's not what we wouldn't expect. That they are what they are. It's just, if they're just a little bit smoother than before, that's enough. And as I've probably rabbited on many times, the tuners have, despite what people like to think, it's my experience that the tuners have little or almost nothing to do with the tuning stability. And I've seen people ranting and raving for hours in forums and thereabouts about how much impact it makes, and so on and so on. And some people, hold to that belief. What Ian will see with this is that once I've stretched all the give out of these strings, and I mean thoroughly stretched, these tuners, although they won't be the smoothest things in the world to use, they will hold the tuning on this. There'll be no problem with the tuning, and as I've said many times before in many videos, it's because the tuning has almost everything to do with the removal of slack from the strings and the correct free running of the nut slots, the correct cutting of the nut slots. Kind of proof of the pudding will be in just how well this will stay in tune, having paid attention to those things, and with it still having on paper lousy, crappy old tuners, which, if you believe the kind of dogma, you'd be expecting tuning problems, because the dogma says old tuners are crap and can't keep the guitar in tune, but like I said, not really the case. Okay, so I'm on this working backwards bit here, which is a little tricky. So I want this over the top of the loose string on this run, and then round the other side, pull it up, keep it guided to go under the loose string on the second time round. It's a pain because if you've polished up this paintwork or whatever, you end up having to put fingerprints on it, which you really don't want to do. Now my little slots at the other end, by the way, are just enough. It seems to be, everything seems to be seated perfectly well for my liking. And this is looking beautiful. Wow. I mean, these strings have got a little bit of, I would say corrosion, a little bit of black on them. They've been sitting in their pack for quite some time, so they're not new. And I've had some problems recently with strings that I've bought from certain suppliers that have been a little bit, I suspect, old and a little bit off, possibly damp for a long time. And so to try and not add to that, I keep them indoors now. But wow, look how smooth that one is. Yeah, and I'm still waiting on a reply from one supplier, which is I'm a little bit disappointed that he's completely failed to respond. I'm not impressed with that, so I'm going to have to follow that one up. Ooh. Okay, that's pulled through in a big bang. Okay, now that one is just a little tiny bit close. Oh no, that's because of right, tiny bit close because of the position at this end. I thought I got the slots wrong, but I think I've just about got those right, which makes a change. Woohoo! So I'm just going to pull some first initial stretch out of this and start the process of putting some tension on it. Not much. Ooh, I like it. Right, so this is the big stretch. Get the thumb and the forefinger. Get all the stretch out of these strings as possible. And it's nice because as I'm doing this, I'm looking at how things are looking, and everything's looking very good at the moment. Bridge probably needs a little push to one side there. That's about right. But it's floating, so it does that willingly. So with this stretching business, I can honestly say you probably ideally need to do it like this 3 or 4 times at least to get out the majority of the stretch. Otherwise it's going to be eking its way out on you throughout the months and years ahead, and that's just a pain. It ruins the experience of playing the guitar. You feel like you're playing something that just won't stay in tune. Now I have to be very careful with these high notes, because thin strings, because I don't have any immediate replacements for this, and I also don't have a guitar to tune this to. What might be, can I tell now? Nothing that will tell me. Okay, this isn't tuned, but I'm going to carry on the stretch. Ooh, we've gone for a walk. Okay, so I do think I may, at some point, may just need to get a little bit of, possibly put a little bit of sticky stuff on there. and that E is a micro fraction too close to the B. I might just do a slight tweak on that with the file. We'll see, but for now that's a small detail. That comes from having had to redo those slots or notches. Okay, right, so I can't tune it up now, but I'm just going to do a little bit more stretching, and I'm going to see if I can just space these strings, or that E string, a little bit differently, and then I'm going to go inside, and this will be it. No intonation, oh sorry, there is, but it's a broad one, and all I have to do is move the whole bridge back and forwards, which I'll do in the house where I've got batteries and a tuner. So we're pretty done, and just looking at the way it plays and feels at the moment, this is such an improvement. It's a wonderful change, this old guitar, total transformation. And I'm going to see just in a second if we can get everything to play, albeit not actually in tuned or done up to the right tension. Ooh, could do with a bit more height over there. See, this is the thing. That is currently, my lord, ridiculously small. And that, so I've got to come up quite substantially on this treble side. So bear with me. Up on the treble side. Let's put it to there. We'll see. While I'm at it, let us do a tiny little adjustment. Doesn't need much. That's my cap size, and it is about a millimetre off, so I can make that adjustment there. In fact, I can fill the other one if I need to. Let me just do that while it's here, so I can at least play it in the right shape. Push that out of the way. Wrong piece. Here we have it. Right. It's quite difficult to start a slot with this triangular file, because you think you're looking at the kind of apex or the point of the whatever that thing is, effectively pyramid, and it may well be that I've gone too far now. Hard to tell. Okay, and I'll just round that off to make sure we're flying off the front of the ivory type bone type plastic thing. Okay. If it isn't quite right, I may end up finding myself getting another bridge along the way that starts out better than this. Where is the footprint? Okay, that's better. That's better. Let's push this onto target. Alright, yeah, that'll do. That'll do. That's all good. It's sitting on there. Sitting on there. Sitting on there. It's all going to play beautifully well. So I'm going to do the last bit of tuning and fiddling inside. but I just want to give you a quick look of how we've got it. Nice and shiny. Look at that for an action, ready to go. As I say, a bit of tweaking of the intonation to go. We'll do that indoors. Lovely new nut, new 0 fret, frets levelled and polished, all old grooves removed. Just looks fantastic. Crud removed from the fingerboard, tuners removed, taken apart, oiled or greased a little bit, put back on. Everything looking and feeling good. I know it's out of tune, but right, I'll come back and play it for you in a little bit. Okay, quick roundup. Let's just check we're working. We are working, ladies and gentlemen. Quick play of the guitar. So I like the sound of this. It's like mine. I've got one upstairs similar to this in a sunburst finish as well. Same kind of construction. Hofner Congress, mid-1960s, mid to late 1960s, brought back from the very definitely nearly dead, given the silver treatment, didn't need to remove the frets or resand the fingerboard, so ended up doing it by replacing the 0 fret, levelling these, adjusting the truss rod, removing quite a lot of material from the bridge to bring it down low, precision fret levelling to remove the hump of this part of the neck, which we've got away with, and it plays all the way up there. Yeah, new nut, tuners re-greased and taken off, checked through, re-screwed in. One of the screws was too loose, so I've replaced it with a black pickguard screw, which actually suits it perfectly well. And you know, if the others were even slightly loose, I would replace all those with the same thing. It works, just a bigger, fatter screw than that little tiny thing. So just settling in still a little bit on the tuning. The only thing I'd I'd say about this is the action on the first fret is a fraction higher than I would normally like, and the issue with that really is I don't have an awful lot of say in the matter using the 0 fret like that. So I chose a jumbo fret for the 0 fret to give it lots more life, let it wear, you know, lots more room to wear down there, and it just makes it a fraction higher than I'd like. As you can hear, it plays nicely. Hofner, and I hope you join me again sometime soon for another Relove guitar. Very pleasing to be able to do this one for him as he's a friend, and to get this back to him in a pretty quick turnaround. I think he'd be surprised not only how quick it is, but how great this thing now plays compared to what it was before, and you can see by looking at the before and after pictures. So thanks for spending the time with me. I'll see you soon.